Welcome to BBC News, broadcasting to viewers in North America and around the globe. I'm Regid Ahmed. Our top stories. Iraq's Prime Minister says the operation to retake the city of Mosul is underway. Wave after wave of airstrikes on rebel-held Aleppo. Western countries consider yet more sanctions on Russia and Syria. We meet the teenage migrants trying to get to Britain from France and facing tear gas on a daily basis. Donald Trump tells his supporters that the US elections are rigged, but doesn't offer any evidence. Hello and welcome. The Iraqi Prime Minister Haider al-Abadi says a military operation has begun to recapture Mosul, the country's second city, from Islamic State militants. Only Iraqi troops and police are expected to enter the city, which was seized by IS more than 2 years ago. Greg Dawson reports. Retired Lieutenant Colonel Tony Shaffer is Vice President for Operations at the London Centre for Policy Research, a New York-based think tank. He's also a CIA-trained intelligence officer. I asked him if it would be tougher to retake Mosul than it was to recapture the city of Fallujah, regained by Iraqi forces earlier this year.
Absolutely. This is a large urban area. It's a very difficult task because we already know that, for example, today they've lit oil fields on fire, and we know they've booby-trapped the city. And plus, we have the humanitarian aspect of this. 1.2 million people will be directly affected by this. So this is no small task. But as your correspondent said, this is the major shift necessary to dislodge ISIS from Iraq. This is their last major stronghold, and the Pentagon has been working since earlier this year on a very precise timetable designed to essentially have Iraq free of ISIS in any way, in most ways that are measurable by January of this coming year. So this is everything is moving towards the direction the Pentagon has been intending for a while now.
Who are these Iraqi forces? Do they include Shia militia? Do they include US ground troops?
No U.S. ground troops officially. This is a coalition. This is an Iraqi-led operation. We have coalition forces. Our other large ally in this has been the Peshmerga. As if you look at the map around, the Peshmerga have been effective in shaping the operation. They've been very good at being able to devastate ISIS for a while now. They've been our most reliable ally. But the forces going in are going to be Iraqi. Will U.S. troops be with them? Yes, absolutely. We've lost soldiers, a couple already. But this is, we have been working a long time now, training, I think, about 12 divisions, 4 Pesh and 8 Iraqi, for the purposes of actually going in and liberating the city. So this is going to be a tough fight, no doubt. But this is going to be an Iraqi fight.
There are indications that this battle could also take some time. What is going to be the impact on the civilian population in there? I mean, there are some estimates of 1.5 million still living there.
Right. Absolutely, and I think this is going to be something that we have to work with the Iraqis to do. We have given warning to the civilians that the battle's starting. I think that's the minimum we can do. Now we have to bring in resources to help make sure that as we move into the city, they're protected and they're fed. This is going to be a major task. And yes, the Pentagon has been working with the Iraqis to make sure that humanitarian aspects of this operation are going to be followed. So I can't tell you it's going to go easily. I can't tell you it's going to go quickly. But I do believe the Pentagon, working with the Iraqis, has planned for a very effective support to the population as we move in and retake the city.
That was retired Lieutenant Colonel Tony Shaffer speaking to me earlier. Well, the second round of international talks on Syria has ended, with no clear plan of how to stop the bombing of Aleppo by Russian and Syrian government forces. Tougher sanctions on Moscow and Damascus were discussed at the meeting in London, and no option is said to be off the table. But the British Foreign Secretary Boris Johnson and his American counterpart John Kerry conceded that a military solution was extremely difficult. Our World Affairs correspondent Caroline Hawley reports. In other news, there have been scenes of joy after 21 Nigerian schoolgirls kidnapped by Islamist militants in the town of Chibok were at last reunited with their families. The girls were held for more than 2 years by the jihadists of Boko Haram. Officials say the group is still holding 83 others. The 15-year-old daughter of the American sprinter Tyson Gay has been shot and killed in the city of Lexington in Kentucky. Trinity Gay died soon after being hit in the neck after what witnesses say was an exchange of fire between two vehicles in the early hours of the morning. Police have detained 2 people. More than 50 people are reported to have been killed in heavy fighting outside the city of Malakal in South Sudan. Rebel forces mounted an assault on the country's second biggest city on Friday, having seized nearby villages. The government forces say they have repelled the attack. Campaigners are calling on the British government to speed up, as a matter of urgency, its program to resettle the hundreds of unaccompanied children stranded in Calais at the migrant camp known as the Jungle. Small groups have been allowed into the UK, but with the camp due to be demolished in the coming days, there's growing concern for those still living there. Our special correspondent Ed Thomas has spent the last week at the camp. Well, stay with us on BBC News, still to come. Another step on China's long march to the moon, the longest space mission yet for 2 of its astronauts. This is BBC News, I'm Regid Ahmed, the latest headlines. The Prime Minister of Iraq says the operation to retake the city of Mosul from the so-called Islamic State has begun. With Syrian government and Russian warplanes continuing bombing raids on rebel-held East Aleppo, the United States and Britain have been discussing imposing new sanctions on Damascus and Moscow. In the US, Donald Trump, the Republican candidate for the presidency, has alleged that the elections are rigged at many polling stations without giving any evidence. Until now, he has justified the claims by saying the media are biased against him. Mr. Trump's latest comments came as his running mate, Mike Pence, told reporters Republicans will honour the results of the election, no matter the outcome. Meanwhile, an investigation is underway after a Republican Party office in North Carolina was firebombed. Flammable material in a bottle was thrown through the front window in Orange County. A neighbouring building was also graffitied with a threat for Republican Party members to get out of town or else. In a tweet, Donald Trump has blamed the attack on supporters of the Democrats, whom he called animals representing Hillary Clinton. Mrs. Clinton has described the incident as horrific and unacceptable. Well, earlier I spoke to Michael Kuhn, who works as a volunteer at the Republican Party office that was attacked in Hillsborough, North Carolina. I asked him to describe the damage to the building.
Yes, the building that we're in, the rooms we're in, it consists of 3 rooms, and the main room with our signs and our computers, telephone, heavy smoke damage. I understand that the bomb landed underneath a couch and it melted the couch completely. And the chair next to it's been damaged significantly. Our signs were melted, and heavy smoke damage in the other rooms. We can still use a lot of the signs, but there's been significant smoke damage to the building.
It's an extraordinary attack, and it's not something you would normally think would happen in the United States. Have you in your career seen anything like this before?
No, I haven't. And I was speaking with a Republican Party person from our county earlier this evening. He's been a member of this party in this county for about 30 years at least, and he said he's never seen anything like this. So I believe tensions are out there mounting.
This has been a very divisive presidential campaign with a lot of angry rhetoric. Do you think that is partly to blame for seeing this unprecedented attack?
Well, I'm sure it stokes the fires. I'm sure it gets people upset. And unfortunately, these people chose to act violently. Yes.
And what needs to be done then? Because we've seen a lot of the angry rhetoric come from the Trump camp, some of the comments that Donald Trump has made, some from Hillary as well. Is it time for the campaign to just tone down?
No, I don't believe it is. I mean, I believe in freedom of speech. And that's the thing that was threatened today. And like our state party person said, we're going to be open for business tomorrow morning. All the offices here in the state, as well as our Hillsborough office, will be open tomorrow to serve the public with registration forms and voting material, and we'll be there to help people.
And how are you feeling after this attack? Are you worried something similar might happen? Do you feel safe?
Well, I feel safe in that I'm sure we'll all pull together now and strive for the best. But yes, it does leave one with concern, and I believe that you have to overcome that and push on. So.
A Chinese space rocket has blasted off from a launch pad in the Gobi Desert in the first manned mission to China's new space station. 2 astronauts will spend a month living on board the orbiting laboratory, and the mission is designed to test Beijing's ability to send astronauts to the moon and eventually to Mars. Keith Cowing is editor of NASA Watch, and he joins us from Virginia. Keith, thank you very much for your time. First of all, what was it like to watch the blast off?
Well, it's quite clear that China is very proud of this mission. They spent quite a lot of time on camera shots and different angles that, really bring the drama of a launch to anybody, anywhere watching. So it was quite unusual in that regard.
This isn't the first time astronauts have been blasted off into space to rendezvous with the space station. How significant is this particular mission?
Well, it's not the first for China, but this is China's second space station, and they are going to build a bigger one after this. And they were quite prominent in mentioning many times on the CCTV and other networks tonight that their third space station will become operational in 2020. However, the space stations that the United States, Europe, Japan, and Russia currently operate, the International Space Station, will be shut down in 2024. And China was very emphatic that it may well be that they will have the only operating space station. So they clearly have big plans.
Why are they pushing further into space when we're seeing other powers scale back their plans?
Well, that's a rhetorical. I ask that question a lot. What is it that China and also India, who has their own growing space program, what is it that they seem to find exciting about doing this stuff when we've done it 30, 40, 50 years ago? That's sort of an interesting question. And it may well be that the space programs of other countries are middle-aged, whereas these younger countries are growing. And, it's sort of a gold standard to say that you've put humans in space, that you've walked on the moon. And in my mind, that is clearly what China and other countries are up to right now.
There are other plans to get to Mars. Are we seeing a competitiveness here? The US is planning to get to Mars at some point, and China's trying to do it as well. Why aren't they all working together?
Well, there is a competitiveness, and it's new this time. Back in the 60s, we had the so-called space race between America and the Soviet Union to go to the moon. And that clearly was a race. But now you have more than one country capable of doing things. Indeed, it's not just countries that can do this anymore. SpaceX has announced that it's going to launch its own mission to Mars in 2018 and keep doing so until they land humans. So it may well be that the first Americans that land on Mars don't work for NASA. And in fact, they may do it in a way that NASA says, well, can we buy a seat?
Just very briefly, China has this space station in space. We know the International Space Station. How do the two differ? Is the Chinese one a bit smaller?
Well, Chang'e-2 is smaller. However, it's based on a Russian design that was used for the Salyut and Mir space stations. And one of the modules on the International Space Station was based on Mir. So everything is overlapping these days. The designs are new, but they're different. China clearly wants to expand its space station presence. And as far as the US and Russia goes, that's not clear right now.
Keith Cowing, editor of NASA Watch, thank you very much for your time.
My pleasure.
The United States and South Korea have ended a huge military exercise. For 6 days, the navies of the two countries have practiced war scenarios in the seas on both sides of the peninsula. It's the first time exercise Invincible Spirit, as they call it, has been held in 6 years. And it came as North Korea tested a missile on Saturday. Stephen Evans reports from Busan in South Korea. A giant panda, believed to be the world's oldest ever kept in captivity, has died. Xia Jia, who was 38 years old, had been kept at Ocean Park in Hong Kong. And local reports say her condition had worsened rapidly in the past couple of weeks and she'd lost her appetite, but she was put down by vets. And these pictures are from a happier day when the park held a celebration for her 37th birthday last July. That's it from me. You can catch me on Twitter. I'm at Regid Ahmed. See you soon.